Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to all of the loyal listeners of the Street 919 FM. Thank you as always for choosing the Street 919 FM as your frequency of choice this Sunday morning at what might turn out to be a rainy day. I know it rained at least in the east last night. We had significant rains for extending into this morning, and I imagine that there may be some flooding taking place, which we'll probably see during the course of the day. A close friend of mine just sent me some photos of what's happening at the back of her home, where because of all the rain last night, the land is saturated with water, and now she lives on a hill, and the back of her house is now facing threat because the land is so saturated that it has started to fall away. But, wherever you all are, please try and keep safe. If you're going out on the road today and it is raining, as always, we keep trying to tell you the roads are wet. Take your time. Some of you just don't understand the meaning of take your time on the road. Good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Giuseppe, Mr. and Mrs. Regis. Good morning to... morning, Angie. Let me see. Harry McMillan. Morning, sir. Julia Edwards, good morning to you. Gaylan Jackson, Sherry and George, good morning. Leon Joseph, morning. Annette Baird, morning. Mano, Mother Tunapuna, good morning to all of my Allisons. Allison Rojas, good morning. Allison Samuel, Allison Haynes, good morning to all of you guys. Hope that you all are keeping safe. Right, good morning also to the constituency of Aruka Maloney, who are today having their conference with the installation of the new executive and so on, and that takes place later on this afternoon at the Bishops Anstey High School East. Yeah, so Aruka Maloney touted as being the best constituency of the 41. Yeah, so that takes place this afternoon around 4:30, 5 o'clock. I think yesterday the Laventil West constituency would have had their conference. So I saw the MP there, Mr. Hines, putting up some photos and whatnot. So, yeah, the PNM is doing its work in preparation for the internal elections due later next month, 26th, 27th of November, and of course the 4th of December. So all those of you who are members of the PNM, bona fide members of the PNM, not supporters, who would like to be members, and who can vote, make sure you go out on the 26th, 27th, and the 4th of December and cast your ballot, exercise your franchise. And, I just put in a plug there. Remember, I'm contesting the position of social media officer. So, I'm trying to see if I could get some interviews with some of the other persons who are contesting the various positions. I was supposed to have an interview with one of the contenders for the position of political leader this morning, but unfortunately something came up at last minute, so I'm hoping that we can have a chat with that individual during the course of the week. And I would plead with persons, please be respectful if I open the lines for calls, so I ain't saying who it is, but let me have sense. Good morning, Carol. Lucida Francis, good morning. Michael Fleming, Stephanie Medina, good morning. Patsy Edwards, good morning to you as well. Nicole Caesar, Davia Andrews, good morning to all of you guys. Bonnie Love, good morning. Apollinus Pitt, Sharon Williams, good morning. Sherry Ann George. Yeah, so I see that the moderator has crossed 500. I think it's 501. And so that's an average of, will be at the end of October, so that's an average of about 50 murders per month. So if that average continues, we're looking at about 600 murders for the year, which would certainly be an unfortunate record. What is also unfortunate, though, is that you have members of the opposition, supporters of the opposition, who seem to be taking some level of delight in these murder statistics. Why? Because they think it's going to augur well for their party's chances at the polls. That when you can revel or you can see, you could take some sort of positive spin off of innocent, in some cases, and in most cases, innocent citizens losing their lives, and you want to revel in that because you think it's going to give your party a heads up at or fillip in the election. That's very, very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And again, I repeat the fact that we want to blame the government and blame the Minister of National Security. But when Gary Griffith was Commissioner of Police and the murder statistics were down, we weren't saying Stuart Young doing a good job. You all weren't saying the government doing a good job. No, 100% of the credit was going to Gary Griffith. Now Gary's not there. The murder statistics have gone up. All ain't saying blaming the commissioner. No, blame the government and the Minister of National Security. So it's convenient when we will give kudos, or when we will put the blame or the kudos at the feet of the commissioner, and when we're putting it at the feet of the government, right? But anyway, that's how they operate, so fine. Yeah, but I just one point to remind supporters of the United National Congress. The only reason why these murder suspects, when they are apprehended by the police, the only reason why they could get bail under the presumption of innocence, as you all love to keep saying, because, you know, you can't defend the indefensible. All a shame that it was Jayanti Lakshmi and Anand Ram Logan, two UNC lawyers, who petitioned the court to give murder suspects the right to access bail, where before murder was a non-bailable offense. Right? Blood crimes of that nature are non-bailable. So once it is that you were apprehended for murder, you remain in remand until your case called. Now, they can apply for bail. Right? Just remember, that was as a result of the efforts of two UNC lawyers. Two UNC lawyers did that. And because all they're so embarrassed and so ashamed, all they want to come now and talk about, well, yeah, but suppose the person innocent. And they end up behind bars for how many years? Yeah, well, suppose they're guilty. Let us put the suppose they're innocent aside for a while. Suppose they're guilty and they get bail and they back out. And who are the lawyers who represent them? Most of the times, when you see on the newspapers, murder accused gets bail, when you look at the names of the attorneys who went to court to represent them to get bail, it's UNC lawyers, not PNM lawyers, UNC lawyers who are applying to the court for them to get bail. But you all wouldn't talk about that, right? Just remember, the reason why when these guys are found with guns, illegal guns, they have no license for it, and the police hold them, and they cannot be detained for 120 days, is because the UNC in the parliament refused to support the bail bill. The same bail bill that they would have brought when they were in power between 2010 and 2015, and put a sunset clause. And when the sunset clause expired, they decide, okay, well, we'll extend it, but then the PNM come in power, we will not support the extension. Why? Because the statistics don't bear out how much people. So Munilal come in the parliament and read out and talking about, well, the number of people who have been detained for the crimes and so on, and reading like a binary card, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, and the statistics don't support. So we're not giving support, right? So they get caught with guns, high-powered rifles and so on that possibly used in a crime, and they can apply for bail and get out and go back out on the streets, and they know where to go and get the guns and to continue to commit the crimes, right? But the one common denominator in those two things, and others, just remember, UNC lawyers, UNC members of parliament. So when all they want to blame the government and blame the Prime Minister and blame the Minister of National Security for the state of crime, understand that the government is making an effort in the parliament, and when they bring laws that requires a 3/5 majority that they don't have, because 309,000 all in this country decide that the UNC is the best option for this country. But when it comes to crime, the number of politicians before the courthouse, majority of them coming from the UNC as well. So not only are they committing the crimes, they want to defend the criminals too, and they want to petition the court to thwart legislation to assist in the crime fight. All round, they're frustrating the crime efforts, but blame the government, yeah? The government ain't doing enough, and the government ain't doing, what they want the government to do? The police need cars, they buy cars. They want guns, they give them guns. They need bulletproof vests, they give them that. Whatever they need, they give them. Right? The government provided them with the police service with all the money that they need to do what it is they need to do. So what else you want them to do? You want Fitzgerald Hines and the National Security Council to sit down and craft a plan? To craft a crime fighting plan? And then what? Go to the commissioner and say, this is the plan, implement it. For it to come and say that the political directorate is interfering with the police service. Because that's what you all do. If the Prime Minister or any one of them try to intervene to tell the police service what to do, or they jump up to say, well, Gary Griffith talking a pack of nonsense about, oh, they give him 35 million and tell him to go after UNC politicians and lock up UNC politicians and all of that. That they try to tell him what to do. Well, they have a problem with that. So if the government is not to direct the police service as to what to do, what else you want the government to? Because any plan that the government comes up with must involve the police service. Must involve, if they so choose, the army. But they don't have control, direct control over the police or the army. So any plan that they come up with, at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of these entities to execute the plan. So why are we paying a commissioner of police? Why we have an executive in the police service? Is it not their job to come up with crime-fighting plans? At the end of the day, they will decide how the officers are deployed, where they are deployed, how resources provided by the state, by the government, is deployed. So if it is McDonald Jacob have a plan as to how he run in the police service, Dr. Rowley can't pick up the phone and tell him, no, do it so. Fitzgerald Hines can't pick up the phone and tell him, no, do it so. He is responsible. He gets paid every month to run the police service. He gets paid to sit down with his divisional heads to come up with a plan. Okay, we're going to deploy officers here. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. That is his job, his responsibility. But again, I continue to make the point. You have people who get paid handsomely every month to run these respective entities that falls under them. But when things go wrong, we don't want to blame who has direct responsibility, you know. No, blame the minister and blame the government. Yeah? And meanwhile, allow the people with direct responsibility, some of them who are making plenty more money than the line minister, let them go unscathed. Don't talk about them. Only focus on the government, quite because we need the UNC to come back. So we can have another state of emergency and lock up more African at-risk youth. Lock them up. We go find the evidence later. But that's not what I really want to talk about this morning, right? I see the UNC has a list going around with a whole set of things that they claim to be crimes, well, not crimes, but corruption under this administration since they came in 2015. Quite a long list, and several people have sent it to me and asked me to debunk some of the things in it. When I go through it, most of it could be debunked easily, but it would just take up too much of my time. So I'm going through the list now, and I'm going to identify a few things that I find to be most egregious, and I will speak on the issue. And I want to touch this morning a little bit on the issue because they keep talking about this Malcolm Jones thing, right? To talk about government wastage. The Malcolm Jones issue and that the government withdraw the lawsuit because of political reasons and so on. But anyway, I'm going to address that this morning. So that when it is, you see they come back with that stupidness, whether it's in your private WhatsApp chat or they bring it up on Facebook, you could respond appropriately. Let me get this here. Right. No, there's no one. Right, it's 11:27. Let me see how quickly I can get through this. I'm reading here from an article dated The Guardian, Tuesday, the 21st of May, 2019, entitled "Kamla Ruling Reflects on Withdrawal of Malcolm Jones Lawsuit." The Privy Council's ruling yesterday has led the opposition leader to again question the decision to have the multi-million-dollar lawsuit against former Petrotrin chairman Malcolm Jones withdrawn. Addressing UNC supporters at the Northeastern College in Sangre Grande on Monday night, Prasad Bisesa said the pieces of the Malcolm Jones saga were coming together. Jones was taken to court by now defunct Petrotrin after a billion-dollar gas-to-liquids venture failed. However, the matter was dismissed following advice by Queen's Counsel Vincent Nelson. On Monday, the Privy Council ruled in favor of activist Ravi Balgobin Maraj, ordering the release of documents related to the project's failure. According to Prasad Bisesa, Jones's lawyer was Government Minister Stuart Young. In addition, she noted the advice to drop Jones's case came from Vincent Nelson, QC, the state's main witness in the case against former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan and former UNC Senator Gerald Ramdeen. She questioned whether the case's dismissal was just a case of friend. Right? Let's see this other one here. Right, so the Privy Council did politics taint the end of the lawsuit against Jones. And the country's highest court has ruled that there may have been a basis to support claims that there was political interference in the decision to withdraw a US $97 million lawsuit against former Petrotrin executive chairman Malcolm Jones. The government said the decision to drop the case was supported by the legal opinion of British Counsel, Queen's Counsel Vincent Nelson, now the state's key witness, right? In a judgment delivered at the United Kingdom Supreme Court in London on Monday, 5 law lords of the Privy Council ruled that the local courts were wrong to dismiss UNC activist Ravi Balgobin's Maraj lawsuit, which sought to disclose the disclosure of documents related to Petrotrin's failed billion-dollar world gas-to-liquids plant. Maraj, in a statement, dedicated his victory to the former workers of Petrotrin, yada yada, right? As part of the judgment, Lord Philip Seals said that the evidence in the claim suggested that there may have been some grounds for thinking that there was political interference in dropping the case against Jones. The Privy Council... Jones died in August 2017 after a civil claim initiated by Ram Logan under the then People's Partnership Administration was terminated. Initiated by Ram Logan, but when he went up to the Privy Council and the same law lords expressed discomfort with him being a part of the proceedings, given that he was the Attorney General at the time that the lawsuit was initiated. He lied and said, no, he demitted office. He resigned as Attorney General in January of 2014, 1 whole year before he was fired as Attorney General in February 2015, where he couldn't remember that the circumstances under which he was fired, nor the year. Now, you know that you initiated that lawsuit, but lied to the lawyers and said, no, it wasn't me. I wasn't the Attorney General then. But, of course, the members of the literati, the waterfront ilk, forget that. They only know about Reggie Armour lie on a affidavit. Yeah? Yeah, he lied on the current Attorney General lied on an affidavit, yeah, and he embarrassed the country. But you had a man who went and before the law lords, live in front of the law lords and the Privy Council, and lied to them and said, no, I wasn't the Attorney General when this lawsuit was initiated. It wasn't me. No, it wasn't me. Just like it wasn't Anil in room 201, it wasn't me. No, I resigned a whole year before. Yeah. But them boys is good lawyers. In early 2016, Nelson advised the then Petrotrin board that the case had to be discontinued as statements of 2 key witnesses showed that the deal was a bad business decision and not based on negligence. Right. In the case before the Privy Council, the UNC activist was essentially granted a lifeline in his bid to expose the PNM administration's reason for discontinuing the lawsuit against Jones. On August 4, 2017, Jones, 74, passed away at Augustus Long Hospital. The decision means that Maraj can now continue to pursue his lawsuit seeking disclosure before a new High Court judge. It does not guarantee that he would eventually be successful in his claim. Sales, who wrote the 15-page judgment, stated that Maraj had a realistic prospect of success in proving that there was a strong public interest in disclosing the documents which Maraj was seeking would normally be considered exempt under the Freedom of Information Act. The documents were the witness statements of former Petrotrin executives Charmaine Batiste and Anthony Chantak. They were vital in the company's arbitration case against World GTL over the field deal. Batiste and Chantak's statements were being sought as they were the catalyst for the decision to withdraw Petrotrin's lawsuit against Jones. The Privy Council said it was in the public's interest to disclose the statements as it considers that it is arguable that they have significant weight, with a view to securing transparency and accountability in relation to relevant decisions in a number of respects. The court held that the eventual disclosure of this contentious statement would help the public form their own views on Jones's conduct in the World GTL deal and on Petrotrin's handling of its subsequent case against him. Now, I've said this before and it's worth repeating again. The UNC, through Ravi Balgobin Maraj, their lackey, went all the way to the Privy Council to get these 2 witness statements that they said would prove that the decision to withdraw the Malcolm Jones case was politically motivated. All the way to the Privy Council. So they went through the whole gamut, the local court, they went through the High Court, the Court of Appeal, Privy Council, and the Privy Council said, well, okay, we agree with you. The release or the disclosure of these 2 witness statements would be in the best interest of the public, so the public could decide for themselves in the court of public opinion whether or not, in fact, the decision to withdraw the case against Malcolm Jones was politically motivated. When the judgment was handed down, what was supposed to happen? The matter was supposed to be referred to the local court, again, to hear the matter again and make a decision. Dr. Rowley, when that happened, said, look, you know what? This thing going on long enough. I'm fed up here about this every night. The UNC talking about this every Monday night forum. Every chance they get, they pull out press conference. They want to talk about these 2 witness statements. Give it to them. He instructed the then Minister of Energy, Franklin Khan, tell the board of Petrotrin, give it to them. They want it, give them it. They got it. In June of 2019, they received the witness statements of Chantak and Batiste. That was the last we heard anything from the United National Congress with respect to those 2 witness statements that they told the public would prove that it was politically motivated. 3.5 years later, we're still waiting to hear from them. Not a press conference was called, not a press release was put out. no Facebook post, no live, nothing. Nobody from the UNC come out to say, look, you see, we tell all you, we have the two witness statement here. Let us read from it and show you all where we believe it was politically motivated. What they do, when they get it, they give it to Ravi and say, well, here one are you, that yours. So we only knew they got it because Ravi Balgobin Maharaj appeared on TV6 News one night outside the offices of the Integrity Commission saying, oh, he and his attorneys went through the two witness statements and they believe that there would have been corruption involved, and he's taking the two witness statements to the Integrity Commission for an investigation. 3.5 years later, when last all I hear from Ravi Balgobin Maharaj on this matter? When last I hear from him? He not concerned that the Integrity Commission taken too long to investigate? Anyway. So, while they talk about that, there's two things that the UNC do mention. Conveniently, that Vincent Nelson was not the only attorney whose legal advice was sought with respect to the decision to sue Malcolm Jones. Vincent Nelson was one of two attorneys. The second attorney was senior counsel, eminent senior counsel Russell Martino. The same Russell Martino who was this country's attorney general from 1981 to 1986. Well-known attorney. He and Nelson were asked to give an opinion as to whether or not the state had a reasonable prospect of success if they were to file civil suit against Malcolm Jones. And both Nelson and Russell Martino gave an opinion based on the information, the documents that were provided to them at that time by Anand Ramlogan. Those documents should have come from Petrotrin because Petrotrin was the client, right? But Petrotrin ceded its fiduciary responsibility in respect of the conduct of that litigation to the Office of the Attorney General, which was in breach of the Companies Act. Yes, it was in breach of the Companies Act. So they breached the Companies Act to sue a man for breaching the Companies Act. Here, you can't make that stuff up. Only in the UNC though. But they always talk about Vincent Nelson and they talk about Russell Martino. Both Russell Martino and Vincent Nelson, when this administration came in, made the point that their advice to the government at that time that they would be successful if they were to sue Malcolm Jones was based on the limited information that was provided to them. There were two critical pieces of information which was withheld, suppressed by the Office of the Attorney General under Anand Ramlogan when he sought that advice from Nelson and Martino. Those two critical pieces of advice were, one, the witness statements of Chantak and Batiste, and two, the judgment that was handed down by the arbitration tribunal that dealt with the lawsuit between WGTL and Petrotrin. Interestingly, those were the two pieces of information that Malcolm Jones was relying on for his defense in the lawsuit, the $97 million US lawsuit that the state had brought against him. Right? So he was planning to use that. Those two witness statements from Chantak and Batiste, which I just mentioned, were critical in the arbitration between WGTL and Petrotrin, which enabled Petrotrin to win the case against WGTL, which case WGTL did not appeal. So here it is that we have these two witness statements that were presented at the tribunal, right? Among other bits of and pieces of information and so on. But they were critical in the court coming to a decision that the fault with respect to the failure of the project, the WGT, the gas to liquids project, did not lie with Malcolm Jones, the board of Petrotrin, or anybody affiliated with Petrotrin, but rather fell squarely at the feet of WGTL. When that judgment was handed down, right, Ramlogan at that time as Attorney General and Kamla as Prime Minister beat their chest. Yes, or let's see, look, we win this arbitration. We now come in office and we're already doing the work for the people to bring justice for you all against all of the criminal activities that took place under the PNM and the wastage of your money. Your government working for you. We're going after them. Yes, we're going after them. Never mind the fact that that arbitration started long before they came into office. Right? The election was in May of 2010. That arbitration started since February of 2010 because WGTL sued Petrotrin. So they came in, and just as I read that clip I played for you all last week, Friday, with Anthony Garcia in the parliament, where he read out a whole list of schools that were started under the PNM. The PNM, Mr. Manning called the election early, 2.5 years early, The PNM lost the election. The People's Partnership came into office and found all of these schools under construction. But because the construction was completed under them, they decided to take ownership of it. We built it. All it came in. Everything was in place, construction ongoing, men on the work site and doing the work, But as soon as it finished, all you all did went and cut ribbon and say, you all built it. So it's the same thing. They took ownership for this arbitration, which had nothing to do with them. That was ongoing even before the election. But as dishonest as they are, they like to take ownership for things that don't belong to them. But anyway, I continue. So let me just read for you some of this judgment from the arbitration panel, right? And, I mean, you just need to Google it and the information is all there. Let me see how much time I have, how I could get through this. Introduction. The claimants in this arbitration are the World GTL Inc. and its subsidiary, World GTL St. Lucia Limited. The respondent is Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, a company owned by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, incorporated in Trinidad and Tobago, and its address is so and so and so and so. It goes on. The arbitration arises out of a failed venture between the claimants and respondent for the construction and operation of a gas to liquids plant in Trinidad. Relevant facts are set out in detail below. In summary, in 2005, the parties agreed to build, finance, and operate a GTL plant in Trinidad. WGTL was to supply the technology for the plant and be responsible for its management and operation, and the respondent, Petrotrin, was supposed to supply the feedstock for a processing fee and acquire the plant's output. The project was to be financed by a combination of bank debt, project loan, junior debt, or preference equity to be arranged by WGTL in consultation with Petrotrin. By early 2007, the parties had incorporated a joint venture company, WGTL Trinidad, procured financing from Credit Suisse, executed a number of supporting agreements, and commenced construction of the plant. Importantly, the agreement with Credit Suisse provided that the plant would be completed on or before the 12th of July 2009, the date certain. Failure to complete by the date certain was an event of default that permitted Credit Suisse to declare the entire loan due and payable. Soon after construction commenced, however, there began to be a series of substantial cost overruns and delays. By January 2009, the budget had increased by US $234 million, and it was clear that the date certain could not be met. The parties began considering options to avoid an event of default, including negotiating the loan at Credit Suisse and refinancing through Barclays Capital. Ultimately, default was avoided not by renegotiating the loan with Credit Suisse or refinancing with Barclays, but by Credit Suisse assigning the loan to the respondent in return for the respondent paying the amount outstanding. So the respondent is Petrotrin. This meant that the respondent, Petrotrin, was able to extend the date certain, but also that it had become both lender and party to the venture, and the respondent did not seek the consent or give advice to the claimants before taking assignment of the loan. The claimants subsequently commenced this arbitration, the claimants being WGTL. In the arbitration, they contended that the respondent, Petrotrin, breached fiduciary and equivalent non-fiduciary duties that it owed to the claimants by taking an assignment of the Credit Suisse loan for its own benefit, failing to ensure the completion or even take steps to ensure the completion of an alternate financing, calling in the Credit Suisse loan and appointing a receiver over the project, using knowledge as to the financial state of the claimants, WGTL, obtained by reason of its participation in the joint venture in order to exert pressure on the claimants to agree to its restructuring proposals, placing itself in a position where its interests plainly conflicted with the completion of the joint venture. The respondent has made a counterclaim, the respondent Petrotrin. Prior to the commencement of this arbitration, WGTL commenced a proceeding against Petrotrin in the United States Court for the Southern District of New York, alleging fraud, negligent misrepresentation, breach of contract, unjust enrichment, negligence, and expropriation. The matter was stayed because it fell within the scope of the dispute resolution clause in the project agreement. The respondent alleges that by commencing that proceeding, WGTL was in breach of the dispute resolution clause, and it seeks damages for that breach, being the costs and expenses that it incurred. So there was an agreement, a contract between WGTL and Petrotrin, which included a dispute resolution clause, basically stating that if it is things go south and we have a falling out between the two parties, we have a stipulation, a clause which stipulates how we would deal with this resolution, right? Good. So that by WGTL deciding to settle the dispute by suing Petrotrin was a breach of that agreement. All you know about breach. And UNC. I'm telling you about breach now with the indemnity. All right, so I don't need to explain that. All right, so let's bypass this here because there's a lot of reading and I just want to get to the main thing. Right. Project agreement. The project agreement was executed on the 22nd of September. All right, that's what I want to just right. Initial discussions between WGTL and representatives of the Trinidad government concerning the construction of a gas-to-liquid plant in Trinidad began as early as 2001. But it was not until early 2004 that WGTL formally proposed a joint venture to the respondent Petrotrin. The proposal provided that WGTL would bring the GTL plant, the technology, the finance, the project management, etc., and the respondent Petrotrin, as the gas owner, would contribute sufficient reserves to assure the plant's operation for the life of the plant. By May 2004, the parties had executed a memorandum of understanding which states that the parties had an initial discussion concerning the possible joint development of the field and using gas-to-liquids technology. It also states for the purposes of continuing and facilitating the bona fide exemption of the feasibility right. The parties have identified the concept model. Okay. The MOU also envisaged the preparation of the feasibility study, right, which was ultimately completed in November 2004. The conclusion of the feasibility study was that the proposed joint venture was a strong project. Among other things, the feasibility study stated that the project can deliver unlevered project returns above 30% and above 80% of the IRR with leverage. More importantly, phase 1, here it is, will provide Petrotrin with about 20 million barrels of zero sulfur GTL products, and as an added benefit, by taking a company equity position without putting up any cash, Petrotrin is expected to receive US $211 million in pre-tax income during phase 1. And Petrotrin is not required to make any investments in the GTL plant itself. Right? This was the memorandum of understanding. So understand the thinking behind the decision to establish the plant. Main thing coming out of this was that Petrotrin would have been able to provide to the domestic market, the regional and possibly the international market, a higher quality diesel than what they were producing at the time and are still producing and still offering today. Right? Better quality, zero sulfur. Right, so let me get to the point here. So WGTL decided to sue Petrotrin. They went through the court in the US, the circuit court. The circuit court decided, well, look, this matter is not within our remit at this point in time because you all have a dispute resolution clause in your agreement, and therefore we are sending this matter to the arbitration court in London. Let it be dealt with there. Interesting point to note is that WGTL would have approached Credit Suisse, which is an international lender, a well-known international lender, for a loan of $125 million US to complete the project. Credit Suisse would have done their own due diligence based on the representations made by WGTL, and they were satisfied that this was a strong project, a good project, a project that could be profitable, and it was on that basis that they advanced a loan of $125 million. So even if the board of Petrotrin had any misgivings at the time as to whether or not this was a sound project, those misgivings would have been allayed based on the due diligence that was conducted by Credit Suisse, who was satisfied, okay, based on all the representations made to us by WGTL, we are satisfied this is a good project. We're going to lend them the $125 million. I continue. Right. Construction costs and overruns. As noted above, there were significant cost overruns and delays in the construction of the GTL plant. The project agreement stated that the parties' target date for completion of the plant was 18 months from the date of agreement, March 2007, and estimated that the cost of building the plant would be approximately US $110 million. By the time the receiver was appointed, however, the budget was US $475 million, and the plant was not expected to commence production until between June and August of 2010. The parties disagree about the cause of the delays and cost overruns. The claimants, WGTL, alleged that the delays and cost overruns were caused by events outside of its control. Among other things, the claimants refer to, 1, the site that Petrotrin offered for the GTL plant as being near the respondent's sulfur recovery unit, and that months of construction work were lost due to sulfur flares, which emitted dangerously high quantities of sulfur dioxide. 2, a shortage of engineers and other qualified personnel in Trinidad. 3, Petrotrin's unionized labor force, which conducted a series of work stoppages that had knock-on effects on the non-union gas-to-liquid projects. 4, a series of bomb threats which resulted in mass evacuations of the refinery. And 5, asbestos contamination which took months to address. Petrotrin, on the other hand, contends that the primary causes of the delays and cost overruns were problems with project technology, poor project management, which were both matters that WGTL said it would provide. In relation to the project technology, Petrotrin contends, among other things, WGTL used a novel, untested approach to constructing the plant. It used second-hand equipment that was sourced from different methanol plants and modified for use in the GTL plant, and technology that it had developed itself specifically for this project, as opposed to licensing established technology from a third party, and it also sought to do so on a fast-track schedule. In relation to project management, Petrotrin contends that WGTL departed significantly from the petroleum industry best practices. This included testing and developing the relevant technology at the same time as constructing the plant rather than beforehand. So they came with technology, WGTL, that wasn't tested before, and in doing so encountered issues and had to fix it on the fly, as they say, and executing the project in an unorthodox manner, including by entering into the execution phase of the project before completing the pre-planning stage. In light of these matters, Petrotrin contends that the project was plagued by excessive change orders, repeated changings to piping and instrumentation diagrams, substantial modifications to the GTL process design, and need for unexpected technology testing. Petrotrin also says that these problems were exacerbated by the poor performance of the project's engineering, procurement, and construction contractor that was recommended by WGTL, as well as turnover of key project personnel. So WGTL came here with the people, and because the project was all over the place, because a lot of the representations, it seemed, that was made by WGTL were unsound, and so the people were leaving. They were fed up. They say, you know what, we ain't able with this bacchanal. Lie done. Walk out on the work. In light of the cost overruns, Credit Suisse required WGTL and Petrotrin to make 33 equity contributions to WGTL Trinidad to ensure the accuracy of the representations and so on. I had to run through this in the interest of time. The respondents' equity contribution, Petrotrin, totaled $97,107,993. WGTL did not repay any of the contributions within 1 year or transfer any shares in WGTL after 2 years, as required under the Guarantee Contribution Agreement. The tribunal understands that in a separate ICC arbitration, the respondent successfully claimed that this was a breach of the GCA. It is not, however, necessary right. The long and short of it is that the tribunal found in favor of Petrotrin. They agreed with Petrotrin that WGTL breached the GCA contract, and in so doing, the responsibility for the failure of the plant fell entirely at the feet of WGTL. The tribunal accepts the claimant's submission that at least some of the first category, right. Let me see. Let me just get to the judgment here quickly. Right. So, implication in fact, right, conclusion. So, let me get this here. Finding in favor of Petrotrin, therefore, basically the arbitration tribunal awarded Petrotrin costs in the amount of $3.5 million US. They threw out WGTL's claim and found in favor of Petrotrin, essentially. So the arbitration tribunal found that the reason for the failure of the plant had to do with the breach of contract on the part of WGTL. Their misrepresentations and all the things that I outlined for you there just now with respect to the use of the second-hand equipment, the second-hand technology, all of these different things. No blame was ascribed to Malcolm Jones. No blame was ascribed to Petrotrin. No blame was ascribed to anybody affiliated with Petrotrin. The tribunal said the responsibility for the failure of the plant was as a result of WGTL, right? They didn't fulfill their part of the contract. And so when this judgment came out, as I said before, Anand Logan was happy. Look, we already, you see, we working, we doing things for you. So you were praising publicly a judgment that said WGTL was responsible for the failure of the plant, not Petrotrin, not Malcolm Jones. But then you turn around and say, well, we're going and sue Malcolm Jones. Because we want the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago to make a declaration that Malcolm Jones was responsible for the failure of the project. That making any sense? So on the one hand, you're happy that the arbitration tribunal is saying Malcolm Jones wasn't guilty of anything. Petrotrin wasn't guilty of anything. But then you turn around now to go and sue the court, to sue Malcolm Jones, for the court to say that Malcolm Jones was responsible. Basically to give WGTL a lifeline. Because if it is that the local court somehow found in favor of the Attorney General and said, yes, Malcolm Jones was guilty, WGTL can now come and say, well, here what now? We are appealing the decision of the arbitration tribunal, you know, because, A, if it is the high courts in Trinidad and Tobago say the fault wasn't ours, it's Malcolm Jones' fault, and the arbitration tribunal saying is our fault, well, we're going with what the court in Trinidad and Tobago say. So now we're going to sue Petrotrin based on the high court ruling in Trinidad and Tobago. So any money that they would have gotten from Malcolm Jones, they would have to pay it back to WGTL. That makes sense to them, right? But the point I want to make is this. Russell Martino and Vincent Nelson both indicated that Anand Ramlogan did not provide them with the particulars of this arbitration between WGTL and Petrotrin. He did not provide them with the witness statements of Chantak and Batiste, which was critical to Petrotrin winning this arbitration. He deliberately, according to Faris, withheld or suppressed that information. Why? Anand Ramlogan is no fly-by-night attorney. He ain't no chippity. He would have read the judgment, as I just read there. He would have probably also too read the witness statements of Chantak and Batiste and realized, well, Malcolm Jones have a good case here, boy. But I can't get them fellas that. Because if I get them that, they will advise me not to sue. And I want to sue. Because if I sue, I could give a nice brief. Right? After, when this administration came in, and Faris Al-Rawi provided the judgment that I just read from there, as well as the witness statements of Chantak and Batiste to Mr. Nelson and Mr. Martino, they both said they did not have the benefit of that information. And if that information had been given to them by Ramlogan and the UNC, the People's Partnership, when they first came to them for an opinion on whether or not to sue Malcolm Jones, both of them would have told Ramlogan, do not sue. Do not sue Malcolm Jones, because based on the judgment from this tribunal and the witness statements here, Malcolm Jones has a very good chance of winning the case. Do not sue. Hence the reason Vincent Nelson, after, when this administration came in and received the information and he read through it, changed his opinion because he did not have the benefit of this information before. But none of these lawyers who want to come out now to talk about Reggiamo and want disclosure on this, that, the other, and the next some Faris and Hunan, none of them came out to ask Anand, why didn't you give this information to Mr. Martino and Mr. Nelson? Why was it suppressed? Why was it not provided for them? If it is that you wanted to get the best opinion possible. Because you must have known that Malcolm Jones was going to rely on this information when the case came up for hearing. So why would you think that the local court would come to a different conclusion as opposed to the arbitration tribunal in London? Why would you think that? And it is further supported by the fact that when they got the two witness statements back in June of 2019, we heard nothing from anybody in the UNC on the matter. That is where it died. After night, week after week, Monday night forum after Monday night forum, we only hearing about these two witness statements and Malcolm Jones this and Malcolm Jones and Malcolm Jones. All you get the witness statement. And all of a sudden, the Malcolm Jones issue dead. No more comment on that. No more comment about the witness statements. But the government withdrew the case because it was politically motivated, because Malcolm Jones was Keith Rowley's friend. Had nothing to do with the fact that critical information was withheld from the two attorneys whose opinion you sought as to whether or not you should sue. Same attorneys getting the information after came back and said, well, here what now? If we had gotten this information before, we would have told them, don't sue, you know. We would have told them it make no sense. You would be wasting taxpayers' money to pursue this lawsuit against Malcolm Jones because you would lose. That the local court is likely to come to the same conclusion as did the arbitration tribunal in the UK. But the literati ain't going to talk about that. All I know is Malcolm Jones this and Malcolm Jones that. Parrot what Kamla say. Parrot what Munilal say. Parrot what Saddam Hussein say. But don't go and do the research for yourself and ask why it is your Attorney General decided to withhold this critical information that would have given him a different opinion. And we would never heard of any lawsuit for Malcolm Jones. But they're still pushing this nonsense. The thing and how much millions they cost the state and whatnot and stuff. Now, in the interest of time, I don't have the time to go into the statement that was issued by Franklin Kahn with respect to the whole thinking and the rationale behind the GTL plant and what the benefits that was supposed to bring to Trinidad and Tobago if the project had succeeded. If the project had succeeded, Petrotrin would have been making plenty money. The government of Trinidad and Tobago would have been making plenty money. We would have had one of the best quality diesels in the world here. But we don't talk about that. All we know is Malcolm Jones is Keith Rowley's friend, and they withdraw the lawsuit because Malcolm Jones is Keith Rowley's friend. Malcolm Jones is PNM. It had nothing to do with Annan withholding information, suppressing information that the attorneys needed to make the best decision. So when they come to tell you any nonsense about Nelson flip-flop, it had no flip-flop. Faris provided him with the information that he needed to make a decision, the information that he didn't have a couple of years before. But further to that, it is instructive to note that Faris Al-Rawi retained the same legal team that Annan Ramlogan hired to sue Malcolm Jones, which included Varun Debedine and Gerald Ramdeen, the two names from Prison Gate, Nelson and others. The only person who gave back the brief was Varun Debedine because he and Faris had some disagreement. But Gerald Ramdeen was on the legal team that took the decision to advise the government to not pursue the case against Malcolm Jones. You all ever hear in the aftermath of the decision of the government to withdraw the case against Malcolm Jones, you all ever hear Gerald Ramdeen come out and say he had a dissenting view? You all ever hear Gerald Ramdeen come out and say, well, I didn't support the decision to withdraw the case? Despite my best research and best searching, I couldn't find anywhere where Gerald Ramdeen came out and said, I didn't support that. So he was on the team that advised the government to withdraw the case, Gerald Ramdeen. Yeah? UNC, Gerald Ramdeen. But they don't talk about that either. But they want to give you the impression that it was politically motivated and leave it, as Mr. Hines say, they gave me half the thing and chinks in with the rest. Give us all the details, but that is what they do. As I said before, they play on the ignorance of the population. So what they don't know, we will not disclose, and we will only tell them what we need to know. Same thing that happened with Martino and Nelson. Just give them what we want them to know so that it could work in our favor. But that is your government working for you. Show me a liar and I'll show you a thief. We go to the ads. When we come back on the other side, we take your calls.
Want to furnish your home in style? Stylish Furniture makes this possible. Shop using our affordable layaway options to purchase any of our modern sectionals, dining, living room, or bedroom sets, and receive a dinner voucher for two at Ateliers Restaurant and Lounge. For further information, contact us at 652-2542, 652-2688, and 790-1202. You can also visit any of our branches located at 101 Crackness Village, Princestown, and 51 Rushwood Street in San Fernando. Stylish Furniture, for the style in you.
The murder toll continues to rise. The nation is in mourning tonight.
3 people have been found dead.
A soldier was shot dead.
A quadruple murder in Beverly Hills, Laventille.
Where are we right now?
We say bring back love.
Bring back
How we end up here today?
Bring back peace.
Bring back peace. Be your brother's keeper. We say bring back peace on the street.
I want peace. I want peace. Bring back the peace on the street.
Bring back peace on the street.
Bless the world with harmony. There's no greater time for love. No greater time for peace.
Join us Carnival Sunday as we celebrate a festival of novelty. The newest carnival at the newest hotel, Sweet Paradise. At Confident and Sweet Hotel, we welcome none other than the Vi Queen of Soca, Bayan Lion. Bayan Lion. We are something and Confident and Sweet. Instagram at Confident PT for more information. Carnival Sunday, we'll be at Sweet Paradise.
In celebration of Calypso History Month, Tuco North Zone's Extemporama Committee, in conjunction with YMG, presents Extemporama 2022 in honor of Mark John, the contender, recipient of the Hummingbird Silver 2022. On Friday, 4th November at Lions Cultural Center, Fitz Blackman Drive, Woodbrook. Come experience the greatest zonal extempo battle ever. From the south, Winston Gypsy Peters, Abibele, Short Pants, and Mr. Shack. From the north, Black Sage, Contender, Lady Syntax, and Gary Raps. From the east, Lingo, Lady Africa, Myron B, Calypso Night. Guest appearances by Master Funny and Johnny King. MCs Rockers and Sherlyn Hendrickson. Musical accompaniment by Michelle Henry, Kaiso Encore Band. Showtime 8 p.m. sharp. Advance tickets only $150. Plenty giveaways as usual. You can't afford to miss this one. Tickets available at Crosby's Record Shop and all Tuco offices.
Is the greatest extempo clash ever.
Join Pastor Kelvin Heinerine and friends for The Way, The Truth, The Life Radio Ministry, a Church of God ministry, live on the street 919 FM from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. This and every Sunday on the street 919 FM. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father except through me. John chapter 14, verse 6. For further information, contact 686-3845, 349-5178, or 342-7303.
91.9 is counting down 91 days of Christmas. Yes, 91 days of Christmas. It's karaoke, prizes to be won, giveaways. It's the 91 days of Christmas on the street. 919 FM.
I could sing a good serenade. Oh, it's Christmas.
Make today a lucky day with KFC Lucky 7 buckets. Savings never taste so good. KFC in your neighborhood. 7 pieces are delicious. Mouth-watering chicken. 5 regular size for $1.17. Now that's savings. KFC Lucky 7 buckets. 7 buckets. We're lucky with KFC.
Happy to save with a KFC Lucky 7 bucket for only $117.
We're lucky with KFC.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Welcome back and thank you for staying locked to the Street 919 FM. I want to tell Carl Berwick on the chat, right? The government didn't shut down Petrotrin. They closed the refinery, sir. The refinery was one aspect of Petrotrin's operations, and I wish you guys would get this through your thick skulls. The refinery was one aspect of Petrotrin's operations. You had exploration and marketing, which was responsible for finding oil and all of that, right? The refinery was one part of Petrotrin. I heard a piece of nonsense on that show yesterday talking about the fake oil, and they couldn't find evidence with respect to prove the fake oil because they closed down Petrotrin and therefore they couldn't. What utter rubbish. The refinery was shut down, but all the offices that were in operation under Petrotrin are still there, operating under Heritage, operating under Paria. They're still there. All of the files and everything, did they move out anything, any file cabinets and send it anywhere? Everything is still there. Heritage and Paria operating out of the same offices and the same premises that Petrotrin was using. So when all they talk this nonsense, but they shut down Petrotrin so that they could get rid of the evidence. What evidence? Everything is still there on the compound. So if they need to get any documentation when the police was doing the investigation and so on, all of that. As a matter of fact, in the whole case with the fake oil, all they seem to forget that the Prime Minister had asked a question what was going on with respect to the investigation. And the DPP said that the file was sent back to the to the police for them to conduct investigations. So this nonsense I keep hearing about, they shut down Petrotrin so that they could cover up. Cover up what? The offices are still there. All of it's still there. Where they send the files? So if the police need to get a file, they don't know where to look for it. To tell, okay, well, you all remove out the file cabinet, where you send it? You all realize how dotish you all so many come with this nonsense? And then talking about, 3 reports, and the 3 reports said, shut down the refinement. Let me read something for you, Carl. You're taken away from a call time, but let me read this for you. This is from a statement that Kevin Ramnarine gave to the Senate in 2014. I've read this several times, and it seems I need to keep reading it for some more here. Mr. President, I rise to make a short statement on the financial position of Petrotrin in light of low refining margins over the past 2 years and the recent precipitous fall in oil prices and further shrinkage in refinery margin. I hope you're listening, Carl. Petrotrin lost $346 million in 2014 and just broke even in fiscal 2013. 2014 came after 2013, so the situation didn't improve. They went from break-even to a loss of $314 million, Carl, and this was under the PP, Carl. Under the PP. This was due to losses by the refining arm of the company. The upstream side of the company remained profitable in 2014. Let me break it down for you, Carl. This was due to losses by the refining arm of the company. You know what that means? The refinery was losing money, Carl. The upstream side of the company remained profitable in 2014. You know what the upstream was, Carl? Exploration and production, Carl, looking for oil. So that side, finding oil, drilling for oil, was making money. The refinery was losing money. And the money that the refinery was losing was eating out of the profits of the upstream, Carl. I continue. Losses in the refinery are principally due to the collapse in the gross refinery margin. You could look up and see what that means, Carl. The gross refinery margin is the difference between the cost of a barrel of crude oil and the value of the refined products that are derived from the refining of that barrel of oil. In other words, Carl, for every barrel of crude oil that they were importing and processing and refining, they were losing money. So if you spend $100 per barrel, Carl, to import a barrel, you were probably only making $80 when you sell the refined product from that one barrel, Carl. So you're losing money on every barrel, Carl. So if you're buying something to sell, Carl, and every one that you sell, you lose money. Does it make sense to keep that in that business running, Carl? I continue. The fall in the gross refining margin at Petrotrin is a feature of worldwide oversupply of refinery capacity, compounded by the shale oil revolution, which has seen American refiners benefit from cheaper crude oil and lower natural gas prices. As a result, U.S. refinery utilization rates in July 2014 peaked at 94%, and the highest they have ever been since 2005. American refineries are therefore more competitive than their counterparts outside of the United States. Here this part, Carl. These depressed margins have led to the closure of 60 refineries worldwide over the last 5 years, with a further 11 currently being contemplated for possible closure in other parts of the world. In the Caribbean, 2 refineries have closed in recent years. In Europe, 13 refineries have closed in the last 5 years. Here this part, Carl. Petrotrin, and indeed the country, is not immune from this global scenario. Petrotrin is now also facing the specter of falling oil prices, which jeopardizes the profitability of its upstream business. Oil prices have plummeted by more than 30% since 2014 and so on. Why did Kevin Ramnarine feel the need to go and do research, Carl, to see how many oil refineries had closed in the last 5 years, Carl? This is not information that just pop up on your screen, Carl. He had to go, either him or somebody in his ministry, he gave them instructions, and he used to go and do some research for me and find out how many oil refineries closed around the world in the last 5 years. Or he went up on Google himself in preparing this statement and Googled how many oil refineries have closed around the world. Why did he feel the need to talk about that, Carl? What was he trying to tell the nation, Carl, that if it comes to the point where we have to shut down the refinery, understand that this is a global thing. He was setting up the play so that when they knew that that was a possibility, so that if it happened under them, we could tell all you, well, 60 refineries closed around the world already. So it is not that we're doing this because, but this is happening around the world and we are not immune. That is why he told you that, Carl. That is why he went to great stakes to do that research, Carl. But all you don't want to hear that, 3 reports and none of the reports say to shut down. But this man is telling you in 2014, refineries closing around the world, and therefore, and we are not immune from that. Further to that, I would have read for you all a few weeks ago an article where the then president of Petrotrin, Mr. Khalid Hassan Ali, did an interview with a publication called the Oil and Gas Journal, where he indicated Petrotrin was attempting certain things to avoid the refinery having to shut down. An attempt, you know what that means, Carl? We're trying a thing, but we ain't sure it will work. So they reduced output from 180,000 barrels per day to 120,000, so they could cut back on expenses, cut back on operational costs to save money so that they wouldn't have to go out of business. But that didn't work, Carl. And Petrotrin's loss-making situation only got worse. So maybe you could proffer for me, Carl, a reason why Kevin Ramnarine saw the need to mention in that statement that is on Hansard, 60-plus oil refineries around the world had closed down. What was he trying to tell you? But of course, cognitive dissonance, you're so latched on to this truth that you have, you're not going to hear. So I just wasted 3 or 4 minutes trying to explain that to you. 342-0081-466-5391. Because all you so want to hate on this government. But anyway. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello? Hello? Sorry about that. Hello, Dominic, you in me? Morning.
Yes.
All right, yeah, no, sorry about that. Morning to you listeners, morning to you viewers. Dominic, you just explained there, right? Like I said last week, now, it's not a flying saucer engine, science now, in terms of getting down into the nitty-gritty and how you describe it, how they just lap up whatever it is out there without any basis in fact or connections to anything whatsoever. I would like to go beyond in terms of, putting that aside. You need to go urban sometimes. Upon winning its communications, what's the title you're going for again?
Yeah.
Communication.
Social media officer.
Yes. Well, upon going for that, you need to go urban. Like, for instance, expound that same knowledge that you clear up this Malcolm Jones issue, which we have been hearing ad nauseum, like I say, without any fact or fiction.
Yes.
And go urban, go to, like, for instance, organize a little 15 or 20-minute interview on one of those urban station prime time to reach out to those who just buy into the nonsense now, Dominic, if you understand. Because as you say, they just come across as very foolish, just to pon an issue without getting these details as you have, so wonderfully laid out there, if you understand what I'm saying,
yes.
It's you that it just throw up on like chewing gum, like without any, like I say, depth of understanding, but that's good work you do this morning. I looked on and I listened. Thanks. Sorry for all that bacchanal when I know things.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, Dominic, good afternoon.
Central.
Yeah, I hope I am shifting away from where you're talking about the oil refinery, but I want to remind you the latest in the news right now is that 6 ministers, including the Prime Minister, have been called before the court to be cross-examined. Yeah, so that I think we should talk about that a little bit. Have a good afternoon.
No problem. Yeah, they've been called in their capacity as members of the National Security Council. As we know, the National Security Council had initiated an investigation into the firearms, the issue of firearms users' licenses. You recall there was a two-man investigative team that was appointed by the National Security Council, and therefore Gary Griffith is making a claim against the National Security Council with respect to the laying of that report in the Parliament. He's saying that he wasn't given an opportunity to defend himself, and he's taking in front so that he could defend himself before it is laid. You see, Dr. Rowley has been very deliberate in not laying that in the Parliament yet, because unlike what did happen with Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who decided to lay the live sport report, to publish it in the Parliament and create an avenue and an opportunity for the court to throw it out on the basis that due process was not followed and that the subjects of the investigation did not get an opportunity to respond. But I would note, and I was planning to talk about this on Tuesday or so, Central, but you preempt me. So let me just touch this quickly. I saw in an article where Gary Griffith is making the claim that the Prime Minister admitted that he was the high-ranking official who went and to the President's house and gave Blissy Prasad information on him. I don't recall ever hearing the Prime Minister say that he gave any information on Gary Griffith, right? The Prime Minister would have said that information would have been passed to the Police Service Commission. there were several senior police officers who were vying for the position of Commissioner of Police. Nobody said that the information contained was about Gary Griffith. As we know, at least one senior officer has been arrested with respect to bubble and corruption in the issuance of firearm users license, and about 3 or 4 other officers as well. And there is still the PCA, the Police Complaints Authority, is still conducting an investigation into their own investigation into the issuance of firearm users licenses, right? So the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance and others who have been summoned before the court, they have been summoned because they are all members of the National Security Council, and given the fact that they would have commissioned, the council took a decision to initiate this investigation. And it is all part of simply the court trying to decide whether or not they should grant Gary Griffith's request for judicial review. So if it is when these 6 gentlemen go to the court and they give their testimony, and what was the thinking that led to that investigation, and the court is satisfied that they had good cause, then the court could simply say, well, here what now, Gary, we're not granting you we're not granting your request for judicial review because they had good reason to do what they did. So go so. That could happen. You understand? So when you're all trying to make a big thing about this, as much ado about nothing. And that should very well happen. Let me hear what they're going to say then, Nadi. You know what they say? The court bias. That the judge is PNM. Ole jokey. Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Yes, it's amazing how people are evasive about a particular conversation where Anand Ramlogan looks bad, you're Kamala Prasad and the UNC look bad. And you know, he's keen on having a conversation on a simple matter as you not outlined, where everybody would understand it in 2 minutes.
Yes.
But we are talking about things here that you all still have a liking to bring up with respect to Malcolm Jones. And I keep telling people, the likes of Anand Ramlogan and they put cases in it was easy to spend money as an Attorney General by taking any case and putting it up there. Mm-hmm. And I like how you outline even the whole question. You know what of the UNC? And I keep telling people, and I want to compliment the the morally right thinking people in Trinidad. You know, I know Tobago have their way, but you know, it's in Trinidad to keep the UNC where they are. It's very important. The likes of Central, and they know fully well because they have a lifeline because of culture and liking for no reason. We here in the national interest will call a spade a spade. Dr. Rowley will tell you that. He will tell his ministers, yes, if the chips fall where they may. Your leader didn't say that. 33 ministries. And, you know, they are no shame, because you were going to office, do nonsense, and then you're in opposition. 3 days or 4 days after, you have people like the likes of Ram Machan. And that's why Mr. Imbut shows sometimes all this disgust. Ram Machan bringing up an issue where he left the office 3 days ago and didn't resolve.
Yes.
So when you come back to things like Petrotrin and Malcolm Jones, they don't want to hear it once it hits them hard, Dominic. Mm-hmm. They don't want that. They don't want that at all. Because I, for one, if you go to arbitration, you win in arbitration, and you come back here, and you want to put Malcolm Jones, who was in charge of more or less everything concerning the company at World GTL, you win, you get the money, but you're so nasty, you want to put him in court to make a water pauper. And you outline it correct. If Malcolm Jones, if he had won the case, if it had gone through, then obviously, when you would more or less sue again to say, well, look now, in arbiter, the arbiter had it wrong.
Yes.
You were greedy. By Dominic, by this listener, I proud of this country, but you see the UNC and the likes of Central and they don't like it, you know. I keep telling people, if you could stand up and say, a man wants to take over the party because he likes the country more than the party, you're not supposed to run here. Mm-hmm. And you have people like the Larkies, like Central and Dominic, you outline everything in detail that my 12-year-old grandson could understand. And a big hardback man with song like over 60 my age can't understand the whole question of when you can take a party side and when you can take a national side. And when you're to go and do introspection to tell the leader, hey, you look bad there. That's what all you don't do. But you know what? That's what we do. And that's why Dr. Rowley could regain his confidence and know that, hey, boss, we did this wrong. How could we correct it? And listen, not how we could hoodwink the people, how could we correct it? That's the problem with all you. with the UNC and these people. But Dominic, boy, thanks a lot. Yes. Thanks a lot again for educating me on a Sunday. And beside that position you're going up for,
yes.
You probably have to connect with the PNM in relation to public relations, because there are lots of things I'm learning from you in relation to what you outline in detail. And I want people to just sit and listen and wait if we get 30 or 40 minutes of calls. But we get 2 hours of information. It would guide us really, really good. Yes. Thank you, brother. Enjoy your Sunday.
You too, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, my dear Dominic.
Hi, Carol.
Dominic, my dear, thank you for the hard work. Thank you for educating the good people of Trinidad and Tobago, and for telling people Petrotrin is not closed down, but the refinery side had to be shut down because it would have bankrupt Trinidad and Tobago. Where would the authorities, where would the government have gotten money to pay civil servants, to pay public police officers, fire, prisons, everybody, and even the same parliamentarians? Where would they have gotten money if Petrotrin had bankrupted this country? How people would have lived? How little pensioners? When I look at my relatives who get a little pension and other people, where would they have gotten money from? And then you remember the oil went to almost zero. You remember that, Dominic?
Yes.
It went down to zero. Right? And they are saying, and if we are forward thinking and look at the world news, we will know that what happens outside impacts on Trinidad and Tobago. Now, coming to the crime situation, what irks me, you seeing your fellow citizens being murdered, and you gloating over that? And here the question, what are you doing? I want to ask them, the question should be, how can we, as parliamentarians, as opposition, what can we do to help? That is the question I want to ask you all, and I want all the right-thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to ask the opposition, to ask, how can we help? What can we do to stem this tide? Every time they ask for a bill, it's no. Everything is no. You object. You're not supporting anything, and you have the gall to ask, what are you doing? My question is, you have to ask the government and whoever, what can we do to help, to assist? Because when you were there, when the former opposition was there, they gave you the support to certain bills so you could have implemented certain things, right, to stem the tide. What are you doing? Everything's an object. You're just obstructionist. And then finally, Dominic, you spoke about Petrotrin. You spoke about, don't touch too much because they say this case going on and all of that. With the Malcolm Jones and then the Nelson and all these people. All of these things. I mean, if you have, do they really, and you know, Shower Man always say, these people don't love Trinidad and Tobago, you know. If you love Trinidad and Tobago, you will do what is right. You train your guns at Mr. Malcolm Jones, a man who sacrificed himself to give us his best to run a company. And you want to go after him, man. Why? Because you have certain biases, and all these kind of things, Dominic. What manner of people are they, boy? And I want to thank you. It's people like you and Dane and others and Sharon and everybody who loves Trinidad and Tobago, because we have to live here, you know.
Yes.
We have nowhere else to go but to live here. So we have to do what is right for Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Dominic. Blessings to you, my dear.
Thank you, Carol.
Continue the good work. And you are the man for the job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish you could put you in the Senate, too. You make an excellent contributor there.
One day. Right, so let me just find this here. Right. This was the judgment of the tribunal, right? For the foregoing reasons, the tribunal unanimously finds and awards as follows. The claimants, WGTL, have not established that Petrotrin owed them any relevant fiduciary or non-fiduciary duty. All of the claimants' claims are therefore dismissed. All WGTL's claims dismissed. The claimants are ordered to pay US $251,129.64 to Petrotrin in respect of Petrotrin's counterclaim plus interest on that amount of 0.1% from the 26th of October 2010 to the date on which the payment is made. WGTL is also ordered to bear the cost of the arbitration and to pay Petrotrin the amount of US $118,850.81 plus simple interest. WGTL is also ordered to pay Petrotrin $3,925,151.98 US in respect of the respondent's legal and other costs of this arbitration, plus simple interest. So all of that, the arbitration tribunal tell WGTL, pay Petrotrin all that money. Because it's your fault that the plant failed. Not Petrotrin's, not Malcolm Jones. Yours. Leave it there. Good afternoon.
Dominic, good morning.
Yes, sir. Is morning in New York?
Dominic. Huh?
Is morning in New York?
Yeah, it's nice in New York, man.
Okay, all right.
Sun is out, but a little chilly.
Nice.
Dominic.
Yes, sir.
The last time I spoke to you, one of the callers told you how you want to keep that tape to carry for Colin in boat.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to carry this one for him, so you got two to carry for Colin in boat. One time, Dr. Rowley had a broadcast with some of his ministers, giving the people an update of what they were doing in their ministry. When they reached down to the last two, Dominic, Dr. Rowley called Colin Inbert to the podium to speak to the people. Colin Inbert told Dr. Rowley he was waiting to speak last. Dominic, he was waiting to speak last. But he still went on the podium to speak. The last person to speak was Mrs. Regis. When Mrs. Regis went to the podium to speak, oh, hush now. The sister back in New York, she making noise. She at PNM.
Yes, good morning.
I went to see her in the airport last night.
Good morning to your sister. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, Dominic. Mrs. Regis was the last person to speak. When she went to the podium, she thanked Dr. Rowley for leaving the best for last. Dominic, she thanked Dr. Rowley for leaving the best for last. Colin Nimber didn't like that. Dominic, this Regis is the best. Don't answer that. I will leave it there for now.
Leave it there. Anyway. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Hello. I don't understand why am I not. I don't understand what's going on there. 753, I don't know what's going on there. Why am I not Hello, good afternoon. What's going on with this thing? Hello, good afternoon.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. All right, I don't know what's going on with our line. Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, good afternoon.
Good evening. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dominic, very, very good response today. But one thing I would have liked to see, an investigation into why those two men, those two statements were withheld from Nelson and Mr. Martineau. I'm wondering, that's me, whether there was a conspiracy between that company and the then government. That's my one. That's my concern. Thanks, Red.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I really would bother with leave it there with he lies. He lies already. When he crossed the border and he started slander, he would know how to deal with him, just like how he would deal with the Express and all of them first.
Yes.
Quietly, he would just get things done quietly. Sit down there, he don't make no fuss. You get on the own stories, leave it there. You continue, but go further and go deep. I don't just stop short. I always tell you, Dominic, I just always make this point. Every time I hear more things come out on how these gentlemen and them operate, and if you understand how Anand operated with Ramdeen and these other fellas and them, and at one point of time you had Saddam Hussein and them for them getting briefs and paid lots of money for doing absolutely nothing or close to nothing. You understand that it was organized. It wasn't, I used to think they were just, political victimization going after Malcolm Jones. It wasn't that. It was about getting the money out from the office that he holds, Anand holds, and into his bank account. Because what he said, that in his profession, he was making more money. And this came out also from the gentleman, Mr. Nelson. So it wasn't so much about going after wrongdoing, and because he would have done, if you're serious about going after wrongdoing, and then if that would have human rights to say that we're going after Malcolm Jones, he would have just ended there after the arbitration rule in favor of Trinidad and Tobago. But he insisted that he had to go, and then when you think, and then you study the two Land Rovers from England with the two same chassis numbers. Why do you bring in this here, and then you're trying to hide it from the integrity in public life thing there? So instead you're claiming for one that you're entitled to, but you're doing two, which is a serious fraud. And I can't understand how he was not charged. That is a chargeable offense, because I'm asking everybody, even the UNC supporters and all, everybody, you could try doing that in license office and see what will happen there. Try doing that and see if they come in and kick down your door and go in with you. You can't do that. That is against the law. So the idea was how these fellas operated by Anand in his office, sense the reason why. And then you could also look at how his budget for the AG office has skyrocketed so much. And then you had to ask yourself, what the information that Honeywell had given to Ms. Kamala Prasad, Bissessa, and she gave it back to him. She has a part to play in it. So now that he has this problem and she jump out now and start to talk about the witness thing and that is going on, she shouldn't get herself involved in that, because she has interest into that matter. A matter of fact, her name in the future could be called in this whole matter, that they could say that the Prime Minister knew of it at the time, and because we need to get the matter into the court, right? And these fellas and them have to go on trial to clear their names. And maybe, and we're not sure, because how this thing is clean unfold every day and something new. Ms. Kamala Prasad Bissessa's name could be called in that, because she would have had first-hand information on the behavior of her Attorney General from Ms. Honeywell, and she did nothing with it. Actually, she played her hand in clearing the matter, that it was never investigated or probed. It was never probed to say that whether a police investigation should be conducted into the matter. She just turned it back to him, and he did what anybody who in that position would do. You sanitize your own self. Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic.
Good afternoon, sir.
Before me, he partly correct in the sense that I also believe that it was just about making money, siphoning the money. You understand? You're doing that fully well because you get high business, and you already give the guys on them, which is Nelson and the next one, it's the two. But I want to also say that the UNC and them had a hate against Malcolm Jones also, because I could remember, and I know you know that too, when they were on touch man and bow concerning Malcolm Jones, and they make people feel that you say that Malcolm Jones gets in, remember you had 10 or 20 something thousand that it's a big issue, a whole noise about Malcolm Jones. See, I wonder if you still remember that, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But when Khaled, who was the president after, not Khaled? And under the UNC?
Yes.
I think,
yes, Khaled Hassan Ali. Yes.
What was Khaled say? That alone to show. Khaled say moved from that 50 something thousand to about, I think it's 100 and something thousand.
Correct.
You remember that?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and you know, they were telling you, and you just always say, hypocrisy as the UNC. If hypocrisy had a face, UNC would have been, that is the face, because he was the one who continued making the Malcolm Jones pay and this particular stuff. You know, Khaled was looking for more money and them and say nothing and them giving that. You understand what I say?
Yes.
That is the show. We in trouble in this country. If the good right thinking people, and when we come out and say, we in trouble. Because look at these people speak too low. Look at how they get, like that was nothing for them. But the same people that were to the center and then something had to be wrong with them. You talking about our thing this morning. Here who he jump up and ball. He even nothing about understanding about what that face thing with guys with that clown and them other thing. He just jump up to try to change the topic to try to talk about going. But he wouldn't talk about the ministers, how much ministers in the UNC who before the court. He wouldn't talk about that. You understand? All right, no man. Thank you for allowing me this contribution. I'll listen, okay.
Thank
you
you,
enjoy
sir.
the rest of Sunday.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to my brother Dominic.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes, I listen to everybody, and you know, I come to a point now that I say I hate to hear people in Trinidad talking about we are the government, the people are the government. What did the people in the government? Why the people sitting down and our money paying the opposition to be in parliament, to help govern the country? We are paying them taxpayers' money, and they are not working, and the people are not standing up against the opposition and tell them if they are not doing our work, get them out of parliament, get them out of, because if a man down here, a small man down here not working, you know what they'll do? They'll fire him. They'll fire him, and the people sitting down. Look how much money they cannot answer for. The people is not getting after come. We have to be persistent to this, and we need the money. We need it. Can't be that they was in power for 5 years and they get out of power and that's it. Continue asking them about our money. Continue to the answers. And that is why we get angry. I don't know the people use that word, you know. Because no Trinidad is too stupid. Too much, yeah, it's too much stupid people in Trinidad. Too much, you know. And then they want to play that they're so bright. They have education, but they don't have wisdom, they don't have understanding. Because you can't have people paying them. When you see us, look how crime is, you know what them saying? Crime is 600. The murders will be 600. Because you know why? That's what they want. When they reach to that figure now, they go say the government cannot govern. And the people sitting down and not asking Kamala and them, they're in parliament, they're taking taxpayers' money. We want you to sit down with the government and do something about the crime. They have the power, you know. Kamala and them have the power in their hand. And we are not asking them, we are not talking to them. The taxpayers are talking about, not asking them. Sometimes we get them and talk to Kamala and them, only talk about government in power, and government don't do nothing to fight crime. Government alone cannot do it. They cannot do it. And then put it back our head, they cannot do it. Talk to Kamala and them, talk to them. We want the money back and we want all to sit down in parliament. If they can't do it, either fire them or something. We must pass laws. In parliament, they're doing the people's work. The people work. It's not Kamala and them work, you know. Not the UNC work, you know. The people of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what they in their part to represent us. Have a blessed day, my brother.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Dominic.
Good afternoon, sir.
Are you hearing me loud and clear?
I am.
Good. Speaking from Iwer, Princestown.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
That will I agree. Good afternoon to all the titans of democracy, Barataria, Mr. Chance, the Tobago, I think it's a Crown Point, all, and everybody. Dominic, it's so sad to see that that the opposition party are only interested in power.
Yes.
Their main focus is to get into power. And it is to do anything to make the government and Trinidad and Tobago look bad. That is their motive. Because as Mr. Chance had mentioned, I think it was Friday on your show, he did a list of the Caribbean countries where the opposition party were dealing serious with the gun crime, right? But in this country, this opposition, you know, you see all those other opposition parties in the Caribbean, they are for country, you know.
Yes.
Because you see, it will affect every citizen, not only the ruling party, the opposition too. But you see, and like people not seeing these people are only on themselves. Now you know, they wish if by now on December the murder rate, it could be 700. But Dominic, that is their wish, you know.
Yes.
They wish. And you know, Dominic, I mentioned it on somebody else's talk show last week. You know, Dominic, if they should get into power, no, it wouldn't happen by just saying something. You know, the party under them, they would want them to support everything they come in. Serious, you know?
Yeah.
They would want you to support everything. Because why? They want to look good.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, they want to look good. But anybody in power, when you bring something in Parliament, when they done chop it up, you know what I mean, and pull out this, you know what I mean, and pull out that, you know what I mean, and put in that, then they would pass it, and it will be of no use. Imagine a whole man in this country, Dominic, with a gun, and Dominic, in a robbery.
Yes.
And he will tell me the next 20 days he could be outside on bail, Dominic. Where in the world is that boy? Where?
Yeah.
Where in the world? Dominic, where in the world you end up? It's only in this country because of the opposition who only focusing on being into the government and to control the treasury, and they could continue doing what they're doing. But Dominic, one more thing. Short pants in the Kaiso, and I believe it's older than you. You lawyers and us. That older than you know that?
Yes.
Yes. Dominic, that older than you. And Dominic, that calypso is so true.
Yes.
Short pants, he should get a doctorate for that calypso. Because Dominic, politicians does wrong here, and the case would linger for 20 years, and they would be enjoying their wealth, you know what I mean? And it would call January, it would postpone to August, right?
Yeah.
And accordingly, it would postpone to the next January. But you and I, anything will happen? So Dominic is so sad. But anyhow, thanks for giving me that. But if you know I started getting here, Lord have mercy. But I mean, I don't mind.
Yes.
Have a great weekend and safe journey home, brother. Love.
Thank you. You too.
Love to the country.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Greetings.
Yes, you see, we understand what's going on, right? They are not supporting any bills. They said they're going to make the country ungovernable, right? And that's the motto operandi. They're not going to support the bill amendment. But you know, when Dr. Wally was in opposition, he supported some of their bills.
Yes.
To help them fight crime and things. He said the opposition will work with them.
Yeah.
That is different. And the UNC. Also going to the refinery. It's common sense. If you have a business and you're losing money, you get out of that business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Petrotrin then shut down. The refinery was losing money.
Yes.
And the government of today see that the citizens were losing money, decided to close the refinery and keep Petrotrin open and open up a next part, right?
Yes.
So, Dominic, what I really call for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judge Holdit asked us a question, and this is perjury. You will not offer any improper inducement to enter the plea. Who? You? And he said no.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic,
Mm-hmm.
hear what this man say on the oath.
Yeah.
The judge asked him, will you not offer any improper inducement to enter into the plea?
Yes.
Dominic?
Mm-hmm.
Dominic?
Yes, sir.
I'll leave that there as your partner say, and he said, let them get off the phone.
Yes.
I'll leave it there. All right?
Yes.
Listen.
Because if he lied, he's guilty of perjury. Uh-huh. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic.
Mano.
And people trying to do. But I hope everybody listen to the lecture that they give and all the proper information. And I hope we understand. I hope Mr. Penful, and you can ask nothing on what he was talking. You just talk about the doctor and then call to the court and all kind of things.
Yes.
Mr. Penful, you like a piece of double paper. You have no use. You're deciding other things. Mr. Vivier, you pick up your phone to talk nonsense. Your sister should have mashed up your phone ears. You went and picked up in the airport. Everybody knows your sister business. She was in the house. She must be searching up the whole place. Mr. Vivier, give us a chance. When you have a good program going, give people a chance to have proper input in this station, because we don't attend to be listening to the proper information and things that we didn't know, and you call to waste somebody's time. Mr. Libidia, you like the back of a spoon. You not the back of a spoon, I don't know, because the back of a spoon you could still pong a garlic with it. I don't know what they're good for. Stay where you are and stay there. Don't come back.
So 1 minute left. Well, I have 1 minute. Go ahead. Hello. Good afternoon.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Dominic.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas to you too.
All the blessings to you, Uncle Brucey, Mr. and Felix. Morning, Mr. Manu. Mr. Dominic.
Yes, sir.
You see the problem in Trinidad and Tobago. And let me tell you something. You see, sometimes when you have a program going on, you know where is sour milk, Mr. Dominic?
Yes.
Sometimes when you see sour milk in your glass, throw it away from me, please, thank you. Because Dominic, if you drink it, it go upset your stomach.
Yes.
Yeah, and when you have a decent Sunday lunch and you see a glass of sour milk, Mr. Dominic, it will get you upset. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Dominic, I want you to thank Mr. Chance. Good morning, sir. Because Mr. Chance made some revealing contributions there last week, Mr. Dominic.
Yes.
And Mr. Dominic, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are tired saying it. And understand what we're dealing with in Trinidad and Tobago as an opposition, you know, Mr. Dominic. And far as I see in this country, Mr. Dominic, because if a former Prime Minister and how it is called them, the AG, could get herself, give the self silk in this country, Mr. Dominic, what it say about the law, this is losses in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Dominic?
Mm-hmm.
So something have to be wrong somewhere, Mr. Dominic. concerning the Law Association in Trinidad and Tobago, whereby like one section of the community of Trinidad and Tobago could do what they want in Trinidad and Tobago, and the next set cannot do, Mr. Dominic. That's what they're telling me in this country, Mr. Dominic. Because the same people could go in the court and get repossession to let murderers on bail, Mr. Dominic. And we complaining about the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Dominic.
We had to leave it there, but that's still it. We have the time.
Yeah, Mr. Dominic. You have a safe and blessed day and enjoy the balance of your evening for me, please, and be safe. Thanks for your time, Mr. Dominic.
Thank you. So we're out of time. Another other things to say. Join Sharon and myself in the morning. Remember, Bruce is on vacation, and Titans of Democracy will continue the discussion. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I am out.
Do we? Let's go pay some bills on the street. 911.